Now, as you all are very well aware, just a couple of days ago over at the main event for Star Wars Celebration, we got a handful of new Star Wars movie announcements, updated details on the Ahsoka Tano series, Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, as well as a lot of teases of upcoming Star Wars lore. By the way, a lot more announcements related to the TV shows will be unveiled at D23 later this year, with brand new titles in general by John, George, and Dave, as well as new creators as well. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that there's a lot of things going on between, of course, Bob Iger and the Disney executives, as well as John and Dave, really trying to regulate the franchise by cherry-picking from Star Wars Legends and how they are going to be able to balance that out with the existing Star Wars canon. To really retell Legends as accurately as possible is going to be a very big challenge for them, and something that they really are working on every single day. Now that brings us to the next big thing. Now we know that everything related to the new Star Wars movies. Alright, we got the Rey film, we got the Dave Filoni movie, and we got the Dawn of the Jedi film that predates the Old Republic. At D23, they are about to unveil 3 other Star Wars films that will all be centered around the Old Republic era, so keep your eyes open for that as well. But I digress. Let's tap into exactly what's going on with, of course, Luke Skywalker and actor Mark Hamill, and what it means for a specific upcoming Star Wars film, and how it does also involve the influence from Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Now, as you all know, there's still a Disney shakeup to this day between executives, the board members, and even Bob Iger, the CEO. However, with Disney and Lucasfilm gearing up for more announcements later this year, one of their new Star Wars films that are currently in development surrounds the character's return of Rey. However, Lucasfilm creatives are coming around to do something special for fans in an attempt to satisfy the fandom that fans may love or hate. There is something that fans may like or dislike with Disney's big attempt to pay respect to Luke Skywalker again on the big screen. It's described that one of the recent meetings between Disney executives for the upcoming Rey-centered Star Wars film is that they are beginning to fall in agreement with John and Dave's personal request to throw in older version of Luke Skywalker and flashbacks, as well as Force Ghost scenes. For, of course, the flashbacks being pitched by John and Dave will center on the older version of Luke, closer to the events of The Force Awakens, and that John and Dave personally requested the director of the Rey-centered film to base some of the scenes from the recent book Shadows of the Sith. With Favreau and Filoni now gaining lots of creative pull on projects they are not even writing, this is something that Lucasfilm is moving ahead with. Now let me stop right here for 1 second. Now this is all to do with the Rey Star Wars film, to include the older version of Luke actually portrayed by Mark Hamill. No CGI, no deepfake or anything like that. A little bit of de-aging here and there. That's about as far as they're gonna go. That's the game plan right now that they're talking about. But on the other end of the spectrum, Dave Filoni's movie is also going to feature the younger version of Luke through the deepfake technology, very similar to what you saw in the Book of Boba Fett. And that's basically going to be his vessel, if you will, to bring young Luke back on the big screen in ways that we never saw before. But this is something very interesting, and I'm not quite sure if it's going to be enough for fans. I can already imagine some fans are probably going to view this as damage control and like it might not be enough, but at the same exact time, this might add a little bit of icing to the cake of the Rey Star Wars film, which, by the way, is being heavily criticized to this day. A lot of fans are not happy about Lucasfilm moving ahead with focusing on Rey as a character. Now, given that John and Dave are doing a post-Episode 9 series where Rey is going to be completely reinvented, completely changed, visually speaking, design-wise, and her backstory being completely, changed and, retold to the fans, essentially. But this attempt by John and Dave to really make Luke very significant in the Rey Star Wars film, I think is at least something to look forward to a little bit if they can execute this very well, given that John and Dave are not writing the movie, they're not directing it, they're not producing it, but they are getting involved in it creatively because they now hold a lot of privileges over at Lucasfilm on how even the projects that they're not writing, they have some form of control over all of that. So let's tap into the rest here. So we already know that Mark Hamill has been, working on multiple Star Wars projects. He has a multi-show contract deal with John and Dave to come back as the young version of Luke in post-Return of the Jedi era, of course. However, past all of this is where things begin to pick up, is that the addition of multiple Luke Skywalker flashbacks and the return of Luke's Force Ghost, pitched by John and Dave, has recently been accepted by Disney executives. Mark Hamill has already been approached to return for the role, and that they are going to be using some of ILM's new technology to slightly de-age him for the film that's already in the early works right now. However, John and Dave are unsure if this is going to be enough for fans to be satisfied, with Luke also returning in their post-Episode 9 series, with Hamill returning as well, and using a new Force ability to come back to life temporarily. That's going to be done in the series exclusively. It's this combination that John and Dave hope will make the post-Episode 9 content more entertaining than without Luke and Hamill's involvement. Now, again, it's really tricky, and I can say, and I'm very, very, optimistic that a lot of fans are either going to love or hate this. It's going to be a mixed bag, no matter what you do. They had their chance with the sequel trilogy, and that might have been their only window, but there's always a chance to really kind of just reignite that magic again. And if they can really execute this really well in the Rey Star Wars film, where the flashbacks of Luke that's going to be borrowed from the stories of Shadows of the Sith is going to be, done in a very well way, I think that it may have a chance if it just does not strictly focus on Rey and bounces back and forth between her and Luke. That is something that they could really, kind of bring in the fans more so. That's a very good strategy. But will it really be enough in the long run? Like I say, it all really depends. This is something that fans are going to love and hate, because they're also going to be dragging in Luke's Force Ghost in this Rey Star Wars film. They want to do that again. But as far as John and Dave's post-Episode 9 series, they have this plan for him to use the power of the Wills to come back to life, temporarily speaking, to help out Rey and the New Jedi Order against the new foe. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later. A lot of that has already been storyboarded and all the like. So there's a lot of things going into this that I think John and Dave need to be very careful with, especially Lucasfilm. So the real deal for me are going to be the other Star Wars films being announced at D23, specifically being centered on the Old Republic content, being more dark and gritty focused, and really giving you an era like never before, like we have never seen in the actual Star Wars franchise. So, anyways, guys, I would love to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.